The Notcast. Life, love and misery and deep shit.
Do you ever wonder, what the fuck am I doing here? Is this it? Maybe you've got the car, career, house, family and friends. Everything that should make you happy. But still, there's this tenacious sense of being trapped, stuck, lost, or just a bit bloody empty. Welcome to the Notcast podcast, where two therapist coaches, aka theracoaches, lay bare their psycho-spiritual journey of struggle, strife, and realization in their soul search for the keys to a happier, more fulfilling life.
So, episode 12 of the Notcast. Heartbreak. 5 heinous hindrances to healing your broken heart and moving the fuck on.
So cheerful.
My favourite. And we got the swear words back in, which is always good.
Yes, we
also,
did.
for this episode,
bonus,
Amy and I decided to mess around with the technology a bit, which has basically been painful as fuck.
Yes, it really has. It really has.
And we've spent the last 20 minutes or so messing around with a different platform, and we've come back to Zoom. Although we do have different mics currently and are wearing headphones. So this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, it is.
So heartbreak. What does heartbreak mean to you?
Heartbreak. Heartbreak has been the theme of the year for me this year. And I guess the thing that stood out for me most is it has been a shitty, painful process, but it's been a battle of illusion and reality. And the best thing that I've done for myself is just to accept it as a process and a journey, and to really see the good that has come out of it for me. By no means has it been fucking easy. What about you?
Well, initially, I went to Google and I went to the dictionary definition, and what came out was overwhelming distress.
That would be the one.
But here was some other stuff that came up. Lost love, or the stress from lost love. I think that was also in the definition. Disconnection, pain, longing, loss, still loving but not having. And for me, a big one is a loss of identity. So a big thing that I found is that, if we've been with someone and then we're no longer with somebody, then it's almost like we go through this process of changing who we are. It's like we can go if being in a long-term relationship, like day to day, just thinking about that person's always forefront of your mind. Like your life is created with this other person. So they're in your consciousness constantly. And then to have such a break, such a disconnection happen, such a change, I do think it's, it involves a change of who we are and who we are day to day, and that change is quite sudden often.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. All of that, tick, 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 tick. Yeah. I guess the central theme, like the biggest part of this journey for me, has been transformation. Because it was a redefinition of who I am, what my life is, the plans, all of those things. Complete redefinition. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and I went through a really difficult breakup about a year or so ago, and I found the same thing. It was a real transition, and all that stuff I talked about, identity change. Like I hadn't really recognized that until it was happening. Like it was new eyes I was seeing that kind of process through, and it was difficult and it was painful. I'd love to be able to dress it up and say it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And I guess that's what we're about. We don't dress it up.
No, it wasn't easy. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I had more, I want to say more tools, but it's not really more tools exactly. I had a lot more awareness, I think, and experience. And I guess you could say understanding's a better way of putting it, to kind of understand what I was going through. And that made some of the decisions that I made better, easier. Might have made dealing with it easier on some level, but was I singing and dancing? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it, right? I think because I felt like there was some level of expectation by some people that obviously I would deal with it differently because of what I do and therefore who I am. And it's like, I guess the thing to remember in all of it is it's still fucking painful, no matter how much you know or what you might do or who you might be. It hurts. And that's something that needs to be healed.
Well, because interestingly, we start with the what does it mean to you? So I there was 3 areas that I took for the what does it mean.
Yeah.
There was heartbreak, but I also looked at healing and moving on. So healing, here are the couple of definitions that I found. Well, one was restore to sound health, but the etymology for healing was actually it works out as to whole, as in to WHOLE, which makes sense again, I guess, right? Because if your heart broken, now if you're feeling there's that separation from someone, then we feel like we want to become whole again. And in some ways it's not exactly true, because it's not like something physically, I know we like to say it's not like you're broken, you don't need fixing, but I think it can fucking well feel like that.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Yes. I had to keep reminding myself. But yeah, it definitely felt like I was broken. Yeah.
And the moving on bit for me, what came up when I was thinking about it was able to love again, able to trust again.
Yeah.
And well, and they're not hurting, and they're not continuing to go back into the past. That's what moving on means to me when I thought about it.
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I thought about moving on and being in the phase of moving on, I feel like I have a renewed definition of who I am and what I want and what I need, and a level of freedom to kind of be whatever it is that I want to be for me now, and to create what I really want to create for myself. And I guess it's opened up a lot of possibility. So I guess the biggest thing for me, the central thing, is like I made the process how I wanted the process to be, rather than in the past when I've had breakups, I felt like the process has consumed me. So I feel like I have consciously stepped into this process of healing, which is a very different experience for me.
It's interesting you talk about freedom, because I know for me in the early stages, like I remember being there on like whatever it was, like a Friday or a Saturday night or something. I think it was probably a Friday night, because just having done the week and just being like, what do I do with myself? Like,
yeah.
And there's these kind of ghost thoughts, if you like, about you could get fucked up, or you could get and do this, or you can, and it's like, well, I don't want to do any of that stuff. It's like, but what do I do with myself?
Yeah. And
like for me, there was some process of, I get to choose. I don't have to check in with anyone, or there's no one else involved. And in some ways there was I don't know, you could say, there was like a positive freedom to that, but there was also a kind of, an uncertainty to it. And also, in some ways there was a sadness to it as well. There was just the unknown. And like, I do remember being sat there one night and just thinking, I could just sit here and watch Netflix and twiddle with my guitar. And I thought, fuck, I haven't done that since like my 20s. But it was almost like, it felt like a really like a weird overindulgence.
Yeah.
Because it was just, it was so alien to me to do something like that.
Yeah. I'm constantly coming upon moments like that. It's like, oh, you could do something completely different here. How weird is that?
Well, it was, I think it definitely worked out better than getting fucked up and waking up with a massive hangover / come down, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Been there, done that. So shall we go for it? Shall we go for our, is it 5 today?
I don't remember. We just make it up anyway, so whatever.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good.
What's your first one?
Okay. My first one.
Your first
is,
hindrance to healing.
My first
and moving on.
hindrance is lack of acknowledgement.
Lack of acknowledgement. Tell me more.
I went through my own process when I was reflecting on this. And previously, when I've had breakups, it's very much been a case of, I don't care, it doesn't affect me, just move on to the next thing. Just go, 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 go. I can't sit here and I don't want to engage with all of it, and not wanting to really look at it or feel it or deal with it. There was a lack of acknowledgement. But in this process, the first thing I had to do was really just sit there and acknowledge exactly what had happened and where I was. And really, I almost spoke it out loud to myself. It was like, hey, this is what's happened. Okay. And you're going to be okay. And you can look after yourself through this. And you can choose how to go forward from this place. So rather than letting it consume me, that was the point that I was like, okay, no, I need to be able to see what's happening and what I'm going to do next. So it was really taking that time to just acknowledge, this is what's going on. Rather than making it all up in my head, because that's when I fall into the stories of, and it becomes all fantastical and I fall into that victim space. And it was like, no, okay, logically, without all the frills and the stories, this is what's going on. This is what's going on. And that really helped me to kind of stay focused on my healing process and not get lost.
And what difference did that make to you as opposed to like in the past?
Well, it kept me in the frame of the reality of what was going on logically, which was there's been a breakup. Now there's a process that I need to go through. And I think before I fell into the whole, why is this happening to me? And, he's an asshole, and just kind of getting lost in that bit. And somehow thinking that that's going to move me forward or help me or heal me in any way, shape or form. And that's when I used to fall into the pit of, I just need to go and have a drink, or, I need to go out and do something stupid. It was reactive. So the acknowledgement gave me the space to make it responsive, rather than reactive. It helped me to slow down and not get caught up in the shitstorm.
Well, I believe that leads me on to one of mine, but, I did a you again this week and, got about 20 odd points, and then I picked my favorite ones, but then I didn't number them.
Love it.
So one of mine, my first one, as it will be now, not allowing yourself to really feel it.
That was one of mine too, but okay.
Of course it was. Well, when you do 448 or whatever, then you're going to cover every bloody base, aren't you? Well, so for me, not allowing yourself to really feel it. To be honest, this was one of the first experiences like that, and probably the first breakup where I did allow myself to actually feel it and be present with it. I think as in the past, I didn't know how the fuck to do that.
Yeah, to be fair.
I was so used to just escaping it or distracting myself or doing whatever else. And it was tough, and it was painful, and it's that kind of thing that, well, for me, it's one of those experiences you wouldn't necessarily wish on your worst enemy, as it were.
Yeah. But
there's a truth and I think a humanness to it. And what I realized, allowing myself to be with it, it really showed me that, actually this, on some level, this is okay. Like I can experience this sadness and the anger and the flipping between it, and even like within a few minutes or like a few seconds being there to like being sad and crying over something to flip into, fuck's sake, why couldn't you just fucking back to...
Yeah.
But then allowing myself to be with it and trusting that, like I was able to, get more in touch with that kind of, if you like, the observer mindset, or just almost like sit above it in a way. It's probably the wrong way of talking about it, but like not allow myself to be completely consumed by it, because I knew there was no real danger in it. Don't get me wrong. Like if I'd have had a choice, it would be like, not this, please.
Yes, certainly.
But given I didn't actually have that choice, there was this deeper knowing, which I know I'd kind of, over the last year or two, I've kind of cultivated anyway. But to see that show up there, to be able to go through those waves of being sucked into it, and then to be able to come out, or to just like to come out of it a little bit, and to know that it's okay to feel that. It meant I didn't have to run away. It meant I didn't have to hit the bottle, or, try and get fucked up, or, or start texting someone else or whatever. There was no, I didn't have to do that stuff. And, and I think I knew then I was going to feel better for it, because, I've done those things in the past, and they never seem to end up in the place you'd like them to end up.
No, because there's no getting away from it. No. Although we keep trying, right? Yeah. And like I said, that was definitely one of mine too. And it was a similar thing. For me, it's about, I have to feel it to heal it and release it. So and I think that historically has been the problem, is that I've not allowed myself to feel it, which means I've suppressed all these feelings in terrible ways, and then they've resurfaced in other relationships, as they do. But it always fascinates me the lengths we go to avoid a feeling. And in this case and scenario, really just had to feel the feeling. And also kind of realized that the feelings, they ebb and flow. I would feel despair for half an hour, and I'd sit with it, and then it would dissolve and it would turn into something else. But I really felt the healing after that. Every time I let the feeling happen, I felt that little bit of healing going on, thinking, okay, I felt that bit. I felt that. I really allowed myself to feel that. And it was okay, and I was okay. But I feel like that's what started to dissolve the feelings eventually. And then things started to change and shift and move.
I vividly remember points where it'd be I might say goodbye to a client, and then I'd start thinking, and then it'd be during my lunch hour, and then I'd just all right, I started to feel the tears come up. Right, put on some sad songs, have a cry in the kitchen for half an hour.
Yeah.
It's wait for it to pass, right, turn it off, eat some food. Next client.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, though. I think the fear for my, for clients I work with, for myself, used to be that somehow the feeling is going to do something to me. If I feel the sadness, then the sadness is just never going to go away, or, and then it makes me take some form of action. And then it's that's not what happens. The avoidance of the feeling makes you do that behavior, which is just not useful at all. And it's a lot easier to just put that sad song on and have a cry and then kind of move on from that space.
Well, yeah. And I think, before, in the past when I'd gone through breakups, I really did have this, the feeling and all the thoughts were showing me it was the end of the world and I was fucked.
Yeah.
And I don't know, this time there was a deeper knowingness for me that I was going to work it out. Mm-hmm. It didn't always feel like that, but I don't know, I spent less time in despair. And even when I was, I guess you could say, some level of despairing, I didn't buy into the fact that it was going to be like that forever. I did know on some level it was going to change. I didn't know when, which was a bit painful and annoying at times, but I had faith it would do, which was a real difference.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you can't put the date in the diary and go, by this date, I'm gonna be fucking fine.
But you can't achieve your goals if you don't set them, baby. I will be over my heartbreak by Monday.
Yes, at 4 p.m. Oh,
I shall post it on Facebook as my status so that I'm committed to it.
Over it. Oh, okay. So where are we at? Number 2?
Number 2, I think. What's your number 2?
I am going to pick, I don't know, I can pick and choose. It's like a pick and mix. I'm going to pick lack of boundaries. with self and others.
Tell me more.
So, as I said, that this was a really conscious process. So this was something I created, but I was very aware that I needed to be boundaried with myself, to not allow just going off and getting really, really drunk and, you know, just going off and sleeping with somebody, or just in a vain attempt to make myself feel better, which really wasn't going to happen. So I needed to set boundaries for myself, and also boundaries to look after myself. Like, yes, it's okay to feel shit, but there's basics. So I put those boundaries into place, and I wrote them down so that I could read them every day. And it could be my reminder, even in the shittest of moments, that there's things that are in place. But it was the boundaries with other people as well. Were really helpful. So this was one of those moments where it was like, there are certain people that I'm going to have to distance myself from for a bit. People that are going to be the shoulding kind of people. You should do this. You should do that. The kind of people that are going to go, you'll get over it. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Every cloud has a silver lining. You should be grateful. All that kind of shit. I didn't need any of that shit then. So I had to be quite realistic with myself and kind of go, okay, that's not what I need right now. So I had to put those boundaries into place, and also put those boundaries into place around my ex, but just to have those things there so that I felt supported, like I was my cheerleader, because I needed to be at that time. So yeah, it was really important. And I would urge that to kind of have a think about, is it helpful to be having these conversations with these people at this time? And for some other people, it wasn't useful. And I also put in boundaries around the things that weren't helping me. So one thing that I did was not go on social media. I kind of came off social media just because I didn't want that to be the excuse, the rabbit hole that I would go down and then get stuck there. And then that would replace the process of healing. So yeah, I had to kind of kick my ass a little bit, and also be very aware that this wasn't the time for other people to come and offload on me, or I wasn't able to carry other people's stuff at that time, and really have those boundaries in place quite securely and tightly, because again, that's something I've learned from previous experiences. But yeah, it was a very conscious boundary setting process.
So one of mine, interestingly enough, was not committing to closure, which in a way leads on from what you were saying. You know, I know, so in the breakup I went through, there was, you know, I deleted her on certain things, and actually I think she deleted me, but I didn't re-add her. But there were channels open, and I think part of that was my hope that, you know, maybe we'd be able to reconnect at some point. Maybe we'd be able to, you know, smooth things over at some point. You know, and I am a big believer in being able to, you know, stay connected with people when it makes sense to. Like, it's always seemed to me like if you've had a connection with someone and it hasn't worked out for some reason, it's always seemed a bit of a shame that you like potentially would have to bin that off completely because things didn't work. And some of my exes are close friends of mine, though some of them not. And so, you know, I don't think it's always black and white. And yeah, so for me, these channels were open, but I didn't realize in a way that was what was causing me a problem, because, you know, she was still in my consciousness. And, you know, for a while it was like, oh, check her profile. It's like, what are you doing? Becomes one of those things, isn't it? There's this urge, and you just give into it because you think you'll feel better, but either you find nothing and then you're like, oh, well, I better check again later, or you find something you don't really want to see. Yeah. That just makes you feel worse. Yeah. Either way, you're more likely to check again. You know, and there was a definite point where something happened that really got to me. And long story short, after that, I decided, right, that's it. Mm-hmm. And it was a difficult decision, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna block her on everything. And that was for me, you know. And I realized in some ways, I think, you know, I was keeping the channels open for me and for her in a way. But it was at that point when I was like, no, the best thing I can do for me is, you know, close everything down. That was really hard, but it was the commitment to it. Yeah. And in that way, I did actually feel the weight lifted, because it was like I've closed the door, and I've almost kind of, I don't know, it's like putting the boundary in place for myself, kind of what you talked about.
Yeah.
It's like, well, now if I want to do, like, I'm going to have to go and unblock her, or I'm going to have to unblock her number and all of that stuff if I want to try and open things up. So it's almost making that, I don't know, making that commitment to myself and putting those things in place. And that really did make a difference in my ability to be able to move on. Yeah,
that in itself is another example, right? I think those things are really important, and they make a massive difference, because it's that split second sometimes that can make all the difference between something that you do and then in the morning go, oh shit, I wish I hadn't done that. Yeah. And giving yourself that, and just that process of having to go through, I have to unblock, and then I have to, it gives you enough time to kind of drop out of the illusion and kind of go, what am I doing? So yeah, I think that, yeah. Well, those 2 points sat well together, didn't they?
Synchronicity.
Yes. Love it. Love it.
What's your third one?
Oh, I'm thinking.
Which third one will you choose out of your list of 767?
I don't know. Well, I put the rest in my book.
The first volume of
the first volume, How to Unfuck Your Heartbreak. That one. Yeah. I'm going to go with lack of commitment to yourself.
Lack of commitment to yourself. Tell me more.
Yeah. Okay. So this was a new one on me during this process, because prior to that, as such, when I've had a breakup, which is like 15, 16 years ago, I wasn't committed to me anyway. But having been in that process of committing to myself, I really took the time to make the commitment to this process and to myself in this process. So one of the questions I asked myself right at the beginning of this process was, if this was somebody I loved that was going through this heartbreak, what would I be doing? How would I be supporting them? What would I be saying to them? What would that support look like? And that's what I used as my model. And I committed to myself and the process I was about to go through, because what I've previously done and what I see a lot of people do is abandon themselves at that stage. It's like, I'm just going to treat myself like shit, and somehow that's going to help. And the rabbit hole of despair that I've fallen down into before, I was really aware that I didn't want to go there. So I had to commit to doing something different. So I committed to lots of things throughout the process. But the first thing was, I commit to me, and I commit to doing something completely different. So it was a consciousness. It was I am taking control of this process. This process does not control me. And I commit to that. And I am going to love the shit out of myself through this process.
Whether I bloody well like it or not.
Yes. And I didn't like it at points. At points I really wanted to abandon myself. But I had to be the observer and watch that. And I kept coming back to the commitment. I committed myself to me. And had I not done that, I definitely would not be here recording this episode today, because I'd probably still be in the hole.
Spitting expletives.
Licking the wounds and swearing at the top of my lungs, probably. Yeah.
Well, synchronicity. I swear we don't compare notes.
We do not.
But one of mine was trying to deal with it alone, because something I've definitely done in the past is shut myself away. Like especially in the past, if like, if the breakup, if I felt that some of it was my fault, if I, made some particularly not good decisions, and there's all the stuff about, do I deserve help, and do I really want to share this because of all the, the shame and the guilt associated with it. This time, although I did choose to spend time on my own, the time I did spend on my own felt like a choice, or at least more of it felt like a choice, and something I did do. I was more open with people about what I was going through and what I was doing. Like I did connect more with people. I didn't hide so much. And I found in the past like hiding away can mean that it's just can be a bit of a breeding ground for things to get stuck, like for those for the thought processes to go round and round.
Yeah,
and then,
for sure.
I mean, well, yeah, it's like one of the. I don't think it's I wouldn't like to say it's a definite, a rule that you need someone else to help change the tracks, but sometimes it's really fucking helpful. Like to have someone there to have a conversation, to
disrupt.
Well, yeah, to change things. Just to break things up, to get a new perspective, or whatever, or even just not even talking about the breakup or whatever, or sometimes just talking about something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in some ways, that was, having the work that I do was a bit of a godsend, because regularly I was then in front of somebody else focusing on them and what's going on for them. So I'm not in my head on my own thinking about what's going on for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Love that. Definitely important. Because that was one of mine, disconnection, And I know that, again, previously that has been my go-to, just run away and hide from people, hide the pain, because I don't want to be a burden. I guess that's the shit I put on myself. And like you said, it was measured as well. It was like, I need to be alone right now. That's okay. But I was really wary of not disconnecting from people. Like, I didn't want to disconnect from people. But I made sure that I chose the right people to share with, because definitely didn't want anyone to shit all over my heartbreak. So I guess for me, it was quite important to be careful who I chose to connect with during that time.
Yeah, and I think that speaks to your other point, doesn't it? Like, be boundaried about who you share with. And I think I was the same. I think in the past, like, I didn't trust anybody with it, or very few people with it. Whereas I think this time I was a bit more open with the people I wanted to trust. And I do wonder, in some respects, whether that is just it's an experience and a self-trust thing. It's about being able to know, if I share with this person, this might be challenging for me to stay in my energy and my power.
Yes.
Having this kind of conversation with this person, but it's going to be a lot easier.
Yeah.
If I share it with this other person.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely with you on that. Lots of synchronized points today.
Absolutely.
Love it.
What are we on now? 3, 4, 7?
I think 4.
4, okay. All right.
I'm saying 4.
Next.
Okay. Oh gosh, what to go with when there's so much choice? Yeah. Well, it has to be. I kind of mentioned love.
Snuck it in sneakily. Just
I
under the
did,
radar.
but I feel like in every episode it deserves its own, number as such.
Of course, needs the limelight.
Do not roll your eyes at the love. How very dare you?
I didn't even catch myself doing it, so clearly it's just...
it's just every time.
Fuck's sake, here comes the love.
Yeah, all right. Whatevs. Don't pretend like you don't like the love.
That's what she said.
Oh, there we go again. And you see what I have to put up with. Okay.
I'd say you make it too easy for me, but that would also be followed by, that's what she said.
Yeah, I thought it might be. But yeah, it was its own point. So I'm going to go back to it and go, love the shit out of yourself.
Mm.
Like, this is not the time to abandon yourself. Definitely wasn't the time to abandon myself. And shining that light of love on me meant that I focused on me rather than going to the space of why did he do this and what for, and trying to put myself into his head so I could somehow figure something out, which would have been pointless anyway, because that's not going to help me. It helped me to slow down. It helped me to commit. It helped me to look after myself, even when I didn't feel like looking after myself. Again, it was a real commitment. It was I went through the process of reflecting on it, writing about it. It was like, what would loving myself look like right now? You know, and that meant being compassionate, and that meant being, well, slowing down and letting things unfold slowly. That meant allowing myself to have the grieving process. That meant being okay with the up and down roller coaster during the day. That meant letting go of the expectations that I put on myself. So it really helped me to stay in that. And it was a daily practice every morning, like reminding myself that, you know, what is the most loving thing I can do for myself right now? And at the beginning of this process, it was, I needed to remind myself on the hour, every hour. It was like, are you loving yourself? How are you loving yourself? So for me, it really helped to have questions and to kind of look at them again and again, because my go-to in those scenarios historically had been self-loathing, self-hatred, self-judgment, you know, and a real drop in self-worth. And loving myself meant that I didn't want to put myself through that anymore. Yeah, it really helped me to show up for myself. So that was definitely, for me anyway, the most important aspect, and still is, of this journey.
Yeah, when I think the last breakup I went through, it really did kind of kickstart my self-care, self-love, self-compassion journey. You know, I'd understood about it before, and I'd been taking a lot more care of myself than I did a few years ago, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I really, you know, I didn't understand self-love
mm-hmm.
the way that I understand it now back then. But then, you know, but having that space and faced with that option of like, well, what's the alternative? And I knew all the negative alternatives, right? Like I said, start texting someone else, go get fucked up, like distract, like do whatever. Like I knew that wasn't going to work. So it did, you know, it pushed me down in a way, another avenue. And I did a lot of journaling at that time as well. And I do more now. I'm more check in with myself and like, what do I want? What do I need right now? And I don't think I was doing that so much explicitly back then, but I was journaling. And there is, for me, there is a magic in journaling. I want to say with some awareness, like,
yeah.
I say this because in the past I've journaled stuff and it's just come out like really angry, and it was almost like, or upset. Yeah. It's almost just perpetuated itself, right?
Yeah. Fuck!
Yeah. Whereas I remember when I was doing it, there was this level of almost when I'm getting it out, I'm also able, like I'm reading it back as I'm writing it, and I'm processing it. So I'm being more aware of it as I'm writing it, rather than just using it as a way to, you know, be angry or talk about why I don't know, even about why I'm so sad and screwed up because of it or whatever. That it wasn't that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but in a way that leads on to, you know, to my fourth or whatever number point we're on, which is not being okay on your own.
Yeah.
This was such a big eye opener for me. And explained a lot, you know, like I said, when I realized after the breakups that doing a bunch of stuff was going to be a bad idea. And that, well, what do I do instead? It's like, well, you know, I need to look after myself. I need to pay attention to me. But that was fucking terrifying, actually, in a way. And I really got some insight into how in the past some of the decisions I've made had really been just to stop being in my own company and to stop being with whatever I was going through. And so, yeah, spending that time on my own out of choice made a real difference, because I could, you know, what do I need? Maybe I need a bath this evening. Maybe I do just want to watch some Netflix. Maybe I do want to do some journaling. Maybe I do just want to have a fucking good cry in the kitchen with some sad songs.
I love it.
But I kind of, it almost sounds like a juxtaposition, but for me it's with one of the earlier points, but it's not. I think for me, we need both. There's like the connection piece is important to make sure that I am connecting with other people. I'm talking to other people. I'm not trying to do this on my own, out of shame or guilt or mistrust or whatever. But at the same time, I'm also know when I need that time on my own, and and if I do, it's out of choice and because I'm using that for self-care or healing or self-love or whatever it is. I do believe we need both, but for me, it's the kind of energy of where it comes from. Is this a choice or am I doing it out of fear?
Yeah. And I think that's a great question to ask. I think a big part of this process, for me anyway, was the constant self-inquiry and having to show up and do that. Ask those questions. Why am I doing what I'm doing now? And be accountable to me. Because it's so easy for my ego to just go the other way. And before you know it, showing something terrible is going on. So yeah, I think those questions are really, really useful. Yeah, definitely. Ooh.
So what's your fifth?
What is my fifth? My fifth one, I guess, is a huge one, is trying to bypass the process. Okay. Trying to bypass the healing. Yeah, you see the intake there?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm fine. And what's fine? Everything's fine.
Yeah. Stop that. Just get on with it. It's okay. I'm fine.
That's right. I'm over it. I'm great. Everything's good.
Jump into another relationship now. Yeah. No, there's nothing. There's no baggage. Yeah, all that. Done all of those things before in my life. And they have been hugely unhelpful. And the way I describe this to myself and to people I work with and, through my practice is that align it with an physical injury. So if I broke my leg, there would be a process that I would need to go through. I would need to go to A&E. I would need to get it seen to. I would need to get the treatment. I would need to have some sort of treatment plan. I would need to let it heal. I would need to back off from running or, all of that kind of stuff. And I would need to go through the physio for the best probable outcome. And this is the same thing to me. For the best probable likely outcome that I can have, I cannot bypass the process. I have to be with the process, commit to the process, and acknowledge that there's a fucking process happening and I need to heal and that it's okay. I don't need to run away from it. It happens in stages, but to be open and aware of all of those things and really embrace the fact that it is a healing process. It's an emotional injury that needs healing. Again, not the time to go, well, it doesn't matter, and just, carry on with the rest of everything. Because otherwise, for me, it accumulates, as I call it, relationship junk, which we then take into every other fucking relationship and then wonder why they don't work.
Why do I keep meeting people who are all the same?
Yeah, why does it never change? Why is every experience the same? Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, been there. Well, that kind of talks to one of my sub points, actually.
Sub points, don't you know he has sub points? This is the person, I'm just going to say, that takes the piss out of me every week for having so many points. But now, Mr. Bird has sub points. Love it.
Well, as I told you offline, actually, I had a spreadsheet worth of points that I organised.
Spreadsheets. Yes, he had a spreadsheet, people.
so that I could find the overarching points, which the sub points fit into. But this is why I have 2 pages of nicely organised notes, and Amy just has an absolute fucking mess of a pad.
Thanks. And is it making any difference to the delivery? Probably not.
Not that she's defensive about that at all in the slightest. Anyway, moving on to my sub point. Moving on too quickly.
Yes, I had that one too.
Of course you did. But really, and it talks to what you were talking about. It's that whole, I'm fine, everything's fine because I've fixed everything now. And I've done this myself in the past, where I've split up with someone and I've got into some form of relationship shortly afterwards, whether it's been a long-term relationship, or it's been like a not really sure what this is, or like a friends with benefits, or whatever. It's been something, and it's felt like at the time, no, I'm fine, everything's fine, like, and I genuinely believed it. And what I didn't realize at the time is, in a way, it was my mind saying, how can I escape this pain, this difficulty, this loss, and put my attention somewhere else? And, in a way, I would then get that thing. I would stop the pain, because it's like, oh, new thing to focus on.
Yeah.
But as you kind of alluded to, I, all the baggage came with me, and, I could easily get into a relationship and shortly afterwards be like, I don't want to be in this. And then all the like guilt and everything, like, shit, what have I done? And, oh my God, am I a bad person? And all that bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that leads on then to my actual fifth point.
Oh, does it now?
It does. Which is not doing honest reflection.
Yeah.
Not doing honest reflection. And I feel that's what I did with the last relationship. Was, in a lot of the journaling and stuff I did, was looking at, like, what went on and what happened, and being able to look at it from both sides, what was going on for her, what was going on for me. And there were definite times where it was like, fucking
yeah.
And pushing all the blame to her. And then there was, points of taking it all on me. And there were points where it was like flipping it back and forth.
Yeah.
Points where it's like, well, this just all fucked, and that's sad. And
yeah.
But for me, it was spending that time to keep coming back to it, and, thinking about it also in, I guess you could say, different levels of, what's the word? Consciousness, awareness, to be able to pick the bones out of it. Like, it's probably not all screwed. I was just very, very sad last night when I was thinking about that.
Yeah.
It's probably not all fucking hopeless. But yeah, that kind of thing for me, it kind of helps with that emotional baggage stuff, because it's like, well, it's a bit cliche, but what can I learn from this? Like, what is their stuff and what's my stuff? And, what have I learned here, and how can I change things going forward? And I think it's almost impossible to not have any of that if you move on too quickly and jump into something else or go into distraction mode. But I do think it's better if you don't. And I think probably you have some time to integrate the learning and make better decisions before you make better decisions, I guess, rather than like, oh, I've made a bunch of decisions, and now by the time I've realized they were bad decisions, I've now got to deal with those bad decisions.
Yeah, because then that's another process.
Yeah. Which, it's like, I guess you could say it's like, it's all learning, but, sometimes it's nice to take one or two lessons at a time rather than try and...
Absolutely. They'll have them all together. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Oh, no, I love that. Yeah. Because, I had points in there about reflecting and asking the right questions. And there are things I've learned along the way which have been really helpful in this process. Because looking back, I never did that at all. Like, it was just like, who's to blame? Who can I blame in this situation? Who's the victim? Yeah, it was, all of those things. And I think just having that reflective process that you spoke to allowed me to kind of do that process through the reflection, but then be able to look at it, like you said, and process it. What's that really about? And then, it would change. An hour or two later, it would be completely different.
I see so many people get stuck in that blame game thing, and I hold my hands up. I've been there too, and I think it can feel good to point the finger, but it's so powerless, and it doesn't
pointless.
Yeah, well, in a way, because it absolves you from any learning. If if it's your fault and I'm above you, then I'm dissociated from the whole thing, and then I'm not looking at me. I'm looking in completely the wrong direction. And I remember doing it in my early 20s. I split up with with an ex, and she got with someone else, and I got the wrong end of the stick, because I was really hurt about it, and in standard fashion, I decided to, like, I had a blog back then. I think it was like a MySpace blog that a bunch of my mates read. So I thought,
oh dear,
right, I know.
Oh no,
I will.
this is a really good idea.
I will exercise my creativity
Oh
and
dear.
righteousness
Oh no.
on my MySpace blog, and it felt fucking good for all of about 20 minutes or so. Yeah, and then it didn't, and it was actually really quite damaging for mine and her relationship. And at the time, it was like, in a way, I kind of, well, at the time, I wanted it to hurt. I wanted to be the righteous one and to be like, because it was a fuck you. And that was great until I did reflect more and more, and it started to dawn on me, you've been a bit of a twat. And then it dawned on me even more that, oh, maybe I've got the wrong end of the stick. And well, then it just, eventually when I was, I forget how long it was, but I realized I got the wrong end of the stick. I was in the wrong, and I needed to make amends, really. Well, it was that, or live with the fact that I'd created this shitstorm, and I was the only one to blame for not doing anything about it. And I had to then message her and apologize, essentially.
Yeah.
Which, and in the end, that was great. I mean, it took a few years before, just because of like logistics and stuff, and like she'd moved away. And we're friends now, but there was a few years where we definitely weren't, and that was all really because of my action. And
I believe that's why this needs to be a conscious process. It's like, you made me do that. No, no, nobody made you do that.
Well, and I could have, I don't know. No, to be honest, the way I think about it now, I can't, I don't think there is any way that would make sense for me to say the blame's all on her, because there actually isn't. I mean, it looked like it back then, but that's my point, really. If I'd have lived in that, I would have just been wrong and still angry.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing, right? Always remembering that ultimately a relationship is a dance between two people. It's not a one-sided situation. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So any other points on your list you want to share?
Oh, there's so many. Well, I guess one of them was when not facing the dragons. Because when the breakup happened, that was definitely the moment that all of the stories, boom, from my past relationships and all of those things, so suddenly it was like, and I really had to make such a huge effort to go, okay, I need to turn around, I need to face this. I cannot just let all those, because I fell into this misery about myself. Like the first port of call is always, I'm not good enough, I'm a failure, I'm fucked up, all these things. So I had to stand there and hold that and face that first, because otherwise it would have been a really messy, horrible, ugly process for me. So yeah, I guess it's something about not being afraid, because all of this stuff lived within me. There is nothing that can hurt me within me, and really, really accepting that.
Kind of segues sort of to...
Of course it does.
Well, tenuously. Snap. To one other I wanted to share, and that's, but they're the one, I'll never find that again.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I've definitely experienced that at times, and well, yeah, through a number of my breakups, and the thing is, it always looks real, and I think it ties in with me, for me, for that, that sense of not wanting to be, or not feeling I'm okay on my own, and all of that sort of stuff. I do think in a way there can be some truth in it, in that I think every connection is unique.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think to be able to say I'll never find that exact connection with someone again, I think is a truth in that.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
you're never going to find a carbon copy of that person. But I think that was all masked and shrouded in fear, because, you know, the truth of it is that, well, that's okay, you know, and that's okay because I'm going to be okay. And now I might not find exactly the same thing again, but I also might find something different, and I might learn more.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something that came up a number of times, and it was something that, yeah, that was there with the last breakup that I had, and that did make it tough. And I remember, you know, when I made the decision that I had to leave, it was one of the hardest decisions I ever made, and I was met with that fear. But one of the only kind of, I guess, saving graces, of, if you want to call it that, is that at that point I could see that fear there. I had enough of an understanding of it to be like, do you know what? I don't know what happens next, but I also know that fear is always going to show me a horror story anyway.
Yeah.
And it always has done. And therefore, like, I don't know, there was just this deeper knowing that I know I'm going to work it out.
Yeah.
However it turns out, I know I'm going to work it out. And yeah, and I guess then over time, well, and then in stepping into that, that's where I got, you know, I could see again more and more. It's like, oh, that story always comes up, that, you know, you'll never find this again, blah, 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 blah.
I guess I laughed at that because, I recognize and resonate with that so much. It's just, and yet every time I've said that to myself, whether now or in the past, it's inevitably what I want and need changes as I grow. So, and looking backwards, sometimes after the fact, I kind of think, well, it's a good thing that I'm not going to find that again.
Well, I wonder fundamentally whether it comes from a place of like, I need something else outside of me.
Yeah, that sense of I need something else to complete me.
Yeah, like I'm lacking, and you're it. That's it. And in that moment of loss, of disconnection, or the fear of it, that does look really real, as if I'm not going to be okay. And it only takes that decision, or, you know, whatever, that commitment to just sitting with that before you start to see, actually, do you know what? I'm going to be okay. And no, this still may be shit, and I still may wish in some ways that it could be different in however many different ways. But as it's not, I'm going to be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, definitely for me, knowing that I have all of those things within me, the love and all of those things already, definitely helped me to get through the process. And that 100% knowledge that I would be okay no matter what happened. Yeah, definitely helped.
I bet. So, closing thoughts on heartbreak, healing, and moving the fuck on.
Honor yourself, like really honor yourself and cherish yourself, and really give yourself that space and time. Like this, there's no rush to get through the process. It can be a massively transformational space, and you get the chance to see it how you want to see it if you slow down.
It's almost as if you read my bloody journal. So, following on from that, mine was breaking up. Yeah, breaking up's hard. And for me, it is, I come back to what I said at the beginning, it's like an identity change. There is this whole shift in perspective and who I am and who I am going to be in the world now. And that's fucking hard. And loss and grief, it needs time and space. And it's something I've learned that you have to give yourself.
Yeah.
Somebody else can try and give you it, but essentially you have to give yourself that time and space.
Yeah.
Cool. Episode 12.
Done.
And dusted. You've been listening to the Notcast podcast, Life, Love, Misery, and Deep Shit, with your TheraCoach hosts,
David Bird
and Amy Dave.
David is a transformative coach and hypnotherapist who guides his clients on a journey of self-exploration and transformation to smash the shit out of their mental stumbling blocks and send their emotional baggage packing. helping them to get back in the driver's seat, create a more powerful, loving connection to life, and unleash onto the world their bright, shining light of authentic give-a-fuckness. You can connect with David at his website, dbch.co.uk. That's dbch.co.uk.
Amy is a transformative spiritual and self-love coach and therapist who takes people on a powerful journey towards self-love and personal transformation. She empowers her clients to discover the truth of who they really are, their true purpose, and the truest expression of themselves, whilst enabling them to navigate life and its challenges with ease, grace, and above all, love. Create relationships that rock their world and let go of the toxic shit that holds them back. You can connect with Amy on her Facebook at facebook.com/amy.dave11. That's ami.dave.11.
The North Coast.